Some places are haunted not because of ghosts, but because of what people once did inside them. Deep in the woods, far from cities and neighbors, there are houses that stand half-rotted and silent until someone walks too close. Josh was 32 when he booked the cabin in the woods. He lived in Portland and worked as a software engineer, spending most of his days behind screens. When his company gave everyone a week off after a stressful quarter, he wanted silence. No city noise, no emails, no bars or traffic. He searched online for cabins in Oregon's forest reserves and found one listed as secluded, rustic, and private. No neighbors within 5 miles. That line sold him. The place looked simple in the photos. Wooden siding, a small porch, a wood-burning stove, and thick pines surrounding it on all sides. The host, a woman named Lydia, messaged him saying there was no cell service, but there was a landline for emergencies. She also mentioned, almost as a joke, "If you hear raccoons on the roof at night, don't worry, they always visit." Josh didn't think twice about it. He arrived on a Friday afternoon. The gravel road ended about a quarter mile from the cabin, so he had to walk the rest of the way carrying his bags. Everything smelled of pine sap and rain. When he reached the cabin, he was instantly charmed. The cabin was old but sturdy, with a tiny creek behind it, and sunlight cutting through the trees in strips. Inside, the cabin was one large room with a kitchen corner, a bed, and a stone fireplace. There were no pictures on the walls, just faint squares where they might have hung there decades earlier. He unpacked all of his stuff and started a fire. Then he spent the evening reading and cooking instant noodles. By nightfall, around 10:30 p.m., the wind began to pick up. The forest outside sounded alive. Branches creaked, and somewhere far off an owl called. Josh sat by the fire, sipping his coffee, when he heard it, a soft knock on the front window. He froze. It wasn't the sound of a branch or rain. It was knuckles on glass. He slowly stood and turned off the small light near him. The fire still glowed enough for him to see the shape of the window. No movement or shadow, just darkness beyond the glass. He waited, but nothing happened. After nearly a minute, he convinced himself it had to be something natural. Maybe a pine cone thrown by the wind. He went back to reading. 15 minutes later, another sound. This time, 2 knocks on the opposite wall, the one facing the woods. Same rhythm and same distance apart. Josh's stomach tightened. He took a flashlight and stepped to the door. He hesitated at first, but after gathering his courage, he opened it, shining the beam of flashlight along the wall and around the porch. But he saw only trees and mist. The rain had started to fall lightly, so he checked the ground. No footprints. The mud was undisturbed. He went back inside, locked the door, and told himself again that it must be wind, maybe loose wood. He put on music quietly and tried to ignore the feeling of being watched. At 11:50 p.m., just as he was getting ready for bed, it started again. This time, footsteps. Not on the porch, but on the roof. Slow, heavy steps, moving from one end of the cabin to the other. Then silence. Then back again. He stood under the low ceiling, staring up, gripping his phone, even though there was no signal. He grabbed the landline phone, but it was dead, no dial tone. He put it down and looked toward the fireplace. The fire had gone out completely, though he hadn't touched it. He quickly relit it, shaking slightly. Minutes crawled by. Every small sound, the settling of wood, the wind, made him jump. At 12:30 a.m., there was a final distinct thud on the roof, followed by a dragging sound that stopped directly over his bed. He waited, whispering to himself that it was an animal. He tried to lie down, but couldn't close his eyes. When he finally drifted off, it was close to dawn. He woke up to daylight filtering through the curtains and immediate relief washing over him. He thought that it had to be raccoons or branches. He stepped outside to prove it to himself. The roof had a thin layer of damp pine needles, but what caught his attention were two long trails, as if something heavy had been dragged across it from one side to the other. He stared at them for a while, then brushed it off. That afternoon, he hiked a nearby trail and even started to relax again. When he got back, the air was unusually still. The forest that was normally full of chirping and rustling was silent now. He remembered reading somewhere that animals go quiet when predators are around. He tried not to think about it. After dinner, he sat near the fireplace again. Around 9 p.m., the power flickered and went out entirely. The only light came from the small fire he had built. He reached for the flashlight and heard the footsteps again. Not on the roof this time, but on the porch. One slow step after another. Josh froze, holding his breath. The footsteps stopped directly outside the front door. He could see the faint outline of the door handle in the firelight. It didn't move. The silence stretched on for nearly a minute, until he finally whispered, "Hello?" No answer. Then came 3 soft knocks, the exact same rhythm as the night before. Josh jumped back. He grabbed a kitchen knife and backed toward the far wall. "Who's there?" he shouted, voice cracking. Still no response. He forced himself to look out the side window. The flashlight beam cut through the dark trees, but revealed nothing. When he turned back toward the door, there was a new sound, the creak of footsteps on the roof again. It moved from above the porch toward the center of the cabin, slow and heavy. He decided to leave. He stuffed his keys into his pocket, grabbed his bag, and bolted out the back door, running into the woods. He didn't stop until he reached his car down the road. He drove through the night without looking back. When daylight came, he called the cabin owner from a gas station payphone. He told Lydia there was someone near the cabin and asked her to check the locks. She sounded calm, almost too calm, and said, "Oh, you're not the first guest to say that. There used to be a man living up there before the place was renovated. He disappeared one winter, but some people say they still hear him walking around." Josh hung up without replying. He never went back. A few months later, curiosity got the better of him, and he searched online for the cabin again. The listing was gone. He checked other sites. Nothing. It was as if the place never existed. He never got an explanation, but sometimes when he's trying to sleep, he swears he hears those same 3 knocks in his dreams.